Okay, so today, for the first episode of We the Common People, I decided to invite a really dear friend of mine. His name is Alejandro Vivas. Alejandro, it's a chemist, like he's an intern chemist that's actually working in a research team with the Venezuelan Institute for Scientific Research. Alejandro, how are you?
Hi, thanks. I'm pretty good, thanks. How are you?
I'm pretty good, dude. I'm pretty good. Thank you very much for taking the time. I know you have been really busy with the research you have been conducting. How's everything going with you so far?
No, everything's going great considering the fact that we're still living in the middle of a global pandemic 1 year after.
Yeah, I know.
But it's always like you always have the time to talk about the nerd stuff that that you're passionate about. So I'm pretty excited to be here.
That's good. Thank you again. Thank you very much for taking the time. It's great, and I'm glad to hear that. When you can make like your passion, like your job, I will assume you have an amazing time doing so.
It can get hard at times. Let's be real. It's not exactly easy.
Well, and I mean, just to give you some time here, would you mind just talking about yourself right here for your audience, just about your career and pretty much what you have been doing, um, like this last year and whatnot, professional development and all that.
Well, yeah, sure. I'm about to graduate for my bachelor's degree in chemistry. Just last year, like right as the quarantine was starting,
Hmm.
I actually introduced my thesis project and presented it to a jury.
And how was that like overall? How did that felt for you? Like not only you were presenting your thesis, which is hard enough by itself, but at the same time, we were in the middle of a global pandemic. Like, how did you feel about that? Was it more stressful than normal?
I think it wasn't as stressful as you might expect. It's more you have certain
Uh-huh.
expectations when you're going to present your thesis. Actually,
See.
in my school, it's kind of a tradition where you invite many people and have like share snacks and stuff
That's interesting.
with everyone, like have a toast at the end and everything. And that's just simply something that couldn't happen in my case because of the overall
Mm,
situation.
I see.
This was actually a very small, very discreet meeting that we had, but everything turned out perfectly. I had a great presentation, even if that was probably the most nervous I've ever been in my life. And well, my work was well, the work I did with my tutor was very celebrated, I could say. So
Well,
it
I
felt
see.
like an amazing progress.
For sure. And well, and you did tell me, right? Like, and I'm glad to hear that again. Congratulations in your thesis. And, like, like it's always an achievement. You're about to graduate, and that's amazing. You did tell me that because of that celebration with the thesis, well, because of the success of your work, well, that's the reason why you're working as an intern with the Venezuelan Institute for Scientific Research. So, would you mind telling us a little bit more about the research that you're conducting right now?
Of course. Well, to put it, I guess, simply, it's a theoretical study on
Hmm.
certain protein interactions. Of course,
Okay,
we can't talk a lot about it because it's still work that has not
sure.
been published, but at least in my area, I've been working with scaled particle theory. It's
Okay,
a series of models that you could say are designed to explain the interaction between particles in a solution. Let's say, well, in this case, changes in the structure of proteins in aqueous solutions, say water with different concentrations of salts and so on.
Okay, okay, no, I get it. I get it. I see.
It's kind of hard to explain, really.
I understand. I imagine that it can go really in depth, and actually, I know you guys are in the middle of the research, so I assume you don't want to get like too in depth on this, since you're still working on this. Is a work in progress. So I
Yeah,
understand
exactly.
you. Let me ask you something else. Like, see, well, you're living right now in Venezuela, which we all know it's in crisis, in an economical crisis at the moment, right? So
Yes.
how does the current state of the country affects the research that you and the team is doing right now?
Well, besides the overall economic situation of Venezuela, we're still living in quarantine that while restrictions are slowly being lifted, we still can't go back to lab work. And as such, our research becomes purely in a theoretical basis. We can't
Oh, I
actually,
see.
first, it's pretty hard to get the actual materials to work with something as specific as certain proteins. It's also pretty hard because at least during my research project, I had to deal with a lot of power outages. I had about 4 to 5 hours of
Wow.
that I could work each day because the laboratory was inside a very strict power
But
rationing
yeah, I see. Um,
schedule.
okay, and I can imagine that must hit really hard the productivity of the team and the advancement of the research.
Yeah, a lot of work. Like there have been times where we got an unexpected power outage, and I lost a whole day or even
Wow,
2 3 days of work because of it. It can be pretty hard to get around that sometimes.
I
That's why
understand.
we have been aiming lately to the strength of, say, molecular dynamics and scale particle theory, other other types of physical models like
Wow.
the LVO theory. That all has to do with interactions of molecules, particles in
So,
certain mediums.
so you could
I don't
say,
have to explain that much.
no, don't worry.
And while my like my particular interest lies in lab work, you have to adapt to the circumstances. Even something as simple as working my thesis project was with working with yeast, like the same
Okay,
kind of yeast you use to make bread and beer and
beer.
so on
Okay,
and so
huh.
on. Even something as simple as that becomes pretty hard because of due to the particular situation we were living in. And like long hours of power outages meant that refrigeration isn't as good for some things that you need to have refrigerated. Lab equipment suffers in hot climates too. It can be
Hmm.
pretty challenging and even discouraging at times. But as I said, we have managed to keep moving forward, to keep finding ways to get around those problems, and we have been having great results. The team has released a bunch of scientific papers on the past year, and it's been mostly theoretical work and cooperation with researchers in the United States and other parts of the world. So
Wow.
the progress of science is is something that you can't really stop.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's that's an amazing thing. Although you guys are facing a lot of adversity in the country at the moment, it's amazing to see that you can actually overcome those issues by just finding ways around the type of research that you can do, and that's pretty amazing. I have to be honest. That's something to. I actually, being Venezuelan myself, I can say I'm pretty proud about seeing how the scientific community back in Venezuela can actually, I will say, impose themselves to the global crisis that we are facing. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, thanks, it really is. And not only the scientific community, like in I guess in every way we can, we are trying to move forward despite the crisis that we're facing. So while it's a pretty bleak situation, it's not entirely hopeless.
Well, that's great to hear. That's always good to hear, because at the end of the day, Venezuela is not the only country at the moment that's facing crisis, and it's really good to know that no matter where we are, like as humans, we can always find the good and a little bit of hope on these difficult times. So it's like I'm really glad to hear that that's your view on the situation, as well as many others, I'm sure. Alejandro, and based on what you just said, just now, what do you think are the goals that you're going to be imposing yourself in the future?
Well, on the short term, say keep working to get more research out, like really build that part of my professional growth. I've been looking forwards to continue my studies, say get a master's degree. I'm still not very sure of where that would happen because sadly, even if we were talking about how we keep hope and we keep moving
For sure.
forward, academically, um, academic and professional opportunities in Venezuela are pretty scarce right now. It's not something that you can find easily. And as much as it hurts to say, the country's economic state is not getting any better. And it's pretty hard to sustain, say, studying for a master's or for a doctorate degree while trying to find work that can get you through the month. So, in that sense, I guess, like most of Venezuelan youth, I'm looking for to continue growing in some other parts of the world.
I see. And that's really interesting. Like I hope for the best for you in regards to your future endeavors. But at the same time, it's sad to see that the national talent that a country can have will escape the country due to the negligence of the actual government. Just like, yeah, whenever a government cannot take care of their people properly or get themselves in a position where it's starting to decay into, I will say, anarchy, that will always make the good people, the people that can push the country forward, that makes them leave. And that gets countries in an even worse state. So it's really sad to see that you trying to leave the country, it's happening due to just the overall state that the government, the regime that we have in Venezuela at the moment has caused.
Yeah, and it's kind of a downward spiral, really. My oldest brother left the country a few years ago with his wife, and he's been doing great. Uh, my second oldest brother is actually going to move out next week with
Wow.
his wife as well. And well, the family expectation is that sooner than later I'll also be traveling somewhere else to find better opportunities. And this is a situation that has been, I don't want to say plaguing or afflicting. It's a situation that has been afflicting a lot of
For
families.
sure. And of course, that as you're saying, afflicting, and also it's a situation that seems to be becoming normalized in countries that cannot stand by themselves. Countries that don't seem to have improvement on their situation, the political and economical situation on site, right?
Yeah, and it's pretty surreal at times because the you have seen the memes of people going like, "Oh no, everything is all right. You can come back now."
Yeah, for sure.
You
Yeah,
and the reality is that we're in kind of a grace period where we're getting dollars from somewhere, like a lot of people trading cash, like with dollars in cash, and
Mhm.
it's it's something like even 2 years ago you just didn't see, and
Wow,
it's
that's
become normal. It goes first in the payment options for a lot of people, and it's pretty surreal. Like
I can imagine.
you can pay the bus with a dollar. You can pay the bus with a dollar bill because getting bolivares, our national currency, in cash is pretty hard for some people. So
And that must be quite interesting, right? Like, not only that sounds like it can create bigger issues, like as far as I know, this is even causing situation where even the dollar itself that's actually being moved inside the country, it's suffering from an strange locally induced inflation where people is
yeah,
inflating the dollar inside the country itself even higher up than what people in the United States will pay for their goods.
yeah, exactly. Like this is the only country where the dollar gets weaker every week.
That's
It's pretty damn ridiculous.
it
But
is.
it has led to, as I said a moment ago, this kind of grace period where people can manage and where people can kind of handle their lives, but it's a pretty artificial situation because the prices increase or decrease from each day without any rhyme or reason. Apparently, I'm no economist, of course.
I understand. Don't worry. I feel like we all just want to, have a little bit of insight. And that's the goal of this new podcast that I want to create, is just to bring a little bit of insight on the life of different people all over the world. At the end of the day, I think, we are humans, and it's interesting to me. It's interesting to know what's going on in the daily life of people all over the globe, so I can have an understanding of how humans live, interact, and just to demonstrate that we are not so different at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I love the idea. It's like it's a way to see that no matter where we come from, we can still find a lot of common ground. No matter your background or where
Yeah,
you are trying to grow professionally or personally.
yeah, for sure. I think this will be our time. I think we can wrap it up here. Then I know you're really busy. Again, I just want to extend a thank you to you for being the first guest here in the first episode of We the Common People. So thank you very much for coming.
Thanks
Mhm.
to you. I had a great time.
That's good to hear. And once the research is done and you have more to share with us, if you ever want to, just say the word, and you are welcome back in the podcast.
That would be great.
Great,
Like
wonderful.
there's a lot of the research even I don't understand. So
I can imagine. Like, it seems like it is a really broad theme, so it seems to be a lot of work there to be done still.
yeah, it's a work in progress. It's always a work in progress.
Science, right? Well, Alejandro, again, thank you very much for coming, and I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope to see you again in another episode.
Thanks. I'd love to be back. Thanks, John.